Have you ever wondered if there is a future beyond what you can imagine right now? Today, we're exploring that with my guest, Becky Prater. So enjoy this first interview in my Divine Feminine Voices series. Becky Prater is the author of Life Transformed: 6 Steps to a Future Beyond Your Imagination. She is also a university lecturer, healer, and life transformation coach. She shows you how to release limitations and set powerful intentions to get the universe working for you. Welcome, Becky. I'm so excited to have you here for our first interview.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Misa. It's such an honor. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'm totally intrigued by your book, by the way, and I love it. If y'all ought to get this, take a look at this, Life Transformed. It's just juicy. I'm loving the quotes in here. She's got these really fabulous inspirational quotes periodically, and she's designed it as a workbook. So you're working through it, right? You're asking yourself questions, you're exploring. I just love it. So I'm excited to share this with everybody and to invite you to talk about it. I absolutely adore this concept of a future beyond your imagination, right?
Mhm.
So would you tell us what you mean by that? Where did that inspiration come from? What does it mean?
I'm so glad you asked because I think one of the problems with us as human beings is we limit our future in 3 ways. I wrote these down so that I would be able to say them properly. Our ability to conceive of the possibilities is limited. So like, let's say you're going out to get a job and you think, or a kid's being asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? They think of the same 20 things. We think of 5 job opportunities that we could have when we are so much more capable of there's millions of jobs out there. And so when we think of a job based on what we know to exist, we immediately limit our ability to get the job that best fits us. The other part is that we have an inappropriate idea of our capability because we think we're capability, we've done this, so therefore we can do this. But the truth is we are infinitely capable of doing whatever needs to be done if we have the passion to do it. So we are so capable. The last thing is that people limit their future by their ability to the way they see themselves as worthy. So we might not feel worthy of something when really the divine knows our worthiness better than better than we do. So if we leave it into the hands of the universe or God or whatever, the creator of all things, when we leave it up to that energy, we open ourselves to something beyond our limited idea of capability, beyond our worthiness, and beyond what we can imagine, because we can't even imagine what's out there for us. So that's what the whole book is about. How do you approach your future or your life or today and open yourself up to something beyond that is not limited by those 3 things I mentioned?
Yeah, it's so true that we try to shape our future based upon what we know or have experienced from the past or our sense of self-limitation. And that's, of course, not what we want. But you're right. We can't quite imagine it yet.
You can't imagine it. Yes. And in fact, when you look at the jobs that have been created in the last 10 years, you wouldn't believe how huge the list is. Like a data analyst. Well, they used to have data analysts, but like somebody would be like a data miner or social media specialist or cloud architect. Those things weren't even something that existed when we were going through school to train for our future. And so the students and the people that are actually, changing jobs or looking to get a new job, likely the job that they really are best suited for won't even come to them maybe until 10 years from now. And so they have to take like little steps and be open to the kind of signs and like doors that open because eventually they're going to land in something that they wouldn't be able to imagine. I also think this is interesting when you talk to people that are seers, like intuitives that say this is what you're going to be, or you talk about the Akashic records and going to the Akashic records. Whatever I've gone, they say to me, we can't let you see because you won't believe it, and you're going to limit it by your doubt and how you're going to think, how would I ever get to that place? So we can't even show you what your future is going to be like, because you need to just take the next step every day. Stay open to the changes, or stay open to the signs, stay open to the opportunities that come your way, because that is what will lead you to this future that is intended for me.
Right. That's exactly right. I like to call it creating into the unknown, which is divine feminine consciousness, which we're going to talk about, that it requires a different set of skills, doesn't it? A different kind of internal mastery so that you can see the signs and the steps and move forward. And Becky, I'm also seeing how popular you are. Clearly your alerts are going. So
my gosh.
That's awesome. That's awesome that you are so loved and so wanted and desired. That's cool.
Oh, thank you.
Indeed. So give us a couple of highlights from, say, 1 or 2 steps in the book.
Okay, I love this. So one of the very most important things is the idea of knowing yourself. Absolutely the most important thing. You need to know what your strengths are. I mean, we can lay down our weaknesses pretty easily because we're constantly reminded of what those are. We constantly play those tapes in our head. But the idea of what are you good at? What do you really love? Where do you find your bliss? Like, those are things that are important because that helps you kind of know what to follow. So I think it's really important to know yourself. I think it's important to heal yourself, because in no matter who you use to get to this place of healing, ultimately you are the one that is healing yourself. And you can use, like I have done all sorts of healing modalities. Most of us have, like anybody that's on this, that's going to listen to this and is on this call, actually has probably tried 15 different modalities of healing. All of those are important. And ultimately it's us and our spirit that integrates that healing and makes it become a step closer to our awakening or enlightenment or whatever. Healing yourself. But one of the very most, they're all so important. I can't say the very most important thing. The important thing is to define your future in a way that gives the universe parameters, but not limitations. And so like children need boundaries. They need boundaries so they know how they can succeed and how they can avoid problems. So when we say to the universe, okay, this is what I want, give it to me any way that you can. That's what needs to happen. So the very first example of this was when I had a terrible dating history when I was younger. And some terrible things happened to me. And I laid it down one time and I said, okay, God, I don't even want to see another man unless they open my car door, pay for everything, and are as passionate about what they do as what I do, as how I feel about what I do. And sure enough, I waited about 6 months and just completely forgot about having said that. And 6 months later, this guy picks me up in this disgusting car, like rusty, and it's one of those old Bugs that has like the floor plates that are rusted out. But he opened my car door of that disgusting car. And I thought, whoa, that's interesting. Then we go and he insists on paying for dinner. And then he talks about like how he just talked not the whole time. He was a good communicator, but he talked about how passionate he was about engineering. And of course I didn't care about that at all. And I thought, I think this is my guy. And sure enough, I've been married to him for 33 years.
Oh my gosh, that's wild.
Yeah. And I realized what happened is it's almost like I gave the universe GPS coordinates for where I wanted to go and allowed them, the energy of the universe, to bring about that without very specific guidelines. Because how would I know? What is best for me? Bring that to me, and these are the 3 things I know are important. So I think it's important for a person to define what they want their future to look like in a way that is not restrictive, like you wouldn't say, I don't want somebody that's um, a slacker. I don't want to have to pay for, I did this. I said, I want somebody to pay for everything. But, I could have also said, I don't want somebody that's going to take advantage of me for my money or something like that. You want it to be worded in a way that is really positive. Like somebody paying for everything. I mean, who doesn't want that? When we're totally capable of making our own money, and we already do, it's just a wonderful thing to be able to be taken care of. Except at the time, I was too young to know what that meant. And the reason I said it is because I was paying my way through school, and that was difficult. And I ended up having to pay for all my dates because all the guys I dated whose parents were paying didn't have money. So, I mean, the reason I said that was like, somebody's going to have to pay for me at some point because I've been paying for everybody all the time. But it's important to really to define what that future is. Give the universe GPS coordinates to take you to this place, and then allow it to be more than that. Watch for the signs, aim in that direction, actually take inspired action and deliberate action toward that same location. We do that these days with our phones. We type in where we want to go, and we release how it's going to be. And we also trust that, like if it's Waze or something, it actually takes us according to the best traffic patterns. And what's so weird is I just know that the universe does that too. Okay, so the last part I want to say about this is the importance of stating it. Okay, so after we define the future, we build a vision board based on positive intention statements. And those intention statements are laid down as though you already have them. And so it's important to say, thank you for my strong, vibrantly healthy body who is limitless. That would be a statement about health. Or, I think I said something about, I usually say gratitude statements, like thank you for a life partner who brings out the best in me, wants the same things that I want. So you've got parameters, because you don't necessarily say I want him to be tall and dark and, in good shape, because that doesn't necessarily mean that's the best for you.
Right. So that's a good example of a limiting statement, too limiting, making it too difficult for the ways, of the universe, so to speak, to work for you, right?
Exactly. Yes. You don't want it to be limited. And then also you don't want it to be something that's negative or a statement of lack. And these days you find that in any self-help book, it's all about saying it in a statement of gratitude or a statement of abundance rather than one of lack. Because I hear people say, I want to, I have people do this thing called a Know Thyself Pocket Guide to Figuring Yourself Out, which is essentially all the questions from the book, but it's in like a brochure.
Oh, nice.
And, yeah, people can download it. I have that on my website. But in it, you get people to do this and they say, oh, I want to be debt free. I want to lose 50 pounds. Well, losing 50 pounds keeps you in a position of lack and in a position of constantly losing 50 pounds. So we don't want that. We want to talk about and build a vision of what the ideal state is. So we kind of remind our own body of this is the state we want to recognize as our truth.
Like my ideal weight, would that be
exactly yes.
This weight?
Yes.
That's cool.
Like a healthy, strong 150-pound woman or whatever that means to you. And then just be in that space and just know that that's your truth. And that more you hold yourself in that vibration, the more all the other stuff is just going to go away.
Awesome.
Oh, here's another one that I just totally love. I love the idea of this is what the universe does. So whatever you say, the universe is like, yes, and here's more of that. And so if you're saying, I need to be debt free, or, it's going to be like a toddler hears the debt word and don't run. The toddler hears the run word. So when you have it, it's a positive thing, like I want to be limitless in my ability, in my money. Like I've got plenty of money. I've got enough money to do the things I want to do and be limitless. Something like that. The universe says yes, and here's more of that. Mm-hmm. If you're saying, oh, I just can't, my life just sucks. I can't, I don't know what I'm doing. Nobody listens to me. the universe says yes, and here's more of that to that too. It's not discriminating. It just says yes, and here's more. And so we don't want that. So we need to implement all these things in order to, keep ourselves moving in a positive, healthy, enriching direction, I think.
Yeah, indeed. And then you really are opening to the energy of the universe. You are creating into that unknown something that's even more spectacular than you can imagine. I love how you're really opening that doorway. I want to make sure, Becky, we talk about some of your experience with the divine feminine directly. I mean, you've done some channeling. So tell me a little bit about, first of all, what is the divine feminine to you, so we know what the reference point is, and then what was that like to do that kind of channeling?
Well, I love that you asked that. So to me, I guess I'd like to say the very first time that I experienced this, Misa, you and I have both been involved in the Mary Magdalene sort of study. And I'm not exactly sure what led me into that, other than I started hearing stories about her and her lineage and having been in south of France. And so I thought, well, isn't that interesting? Nobody ever talks about what happened to the people that were around and what, around after Jesus died. So I started going into the study of that, and I realized that there's this huge, beautiful growth of teaching that happened in the south of France, primarily based on Mary teaching as a woman the same things that Jesus had taught, who taught teachings that he didn't necessarily claim were only his. We think about it being like only his, but it actually was this whole group of people teaching, and she was one of his probably best teachers. Okay, so I went over to the south of France, and I was looking for Mary in the south of France, going to all these different places. And I went into this church called Saint Maximum or something, in like near the cave of Saint Baume. And I walked into the church. It was 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning. On a Sunday morning, there was not a person in the church anywhere, no one. And I thought, well, is it under construction? Maybe it's not being used. But I thought that was a really strange thing. So I went down into the crypt where her skull is. And, they've got it so you can almost not see it, because they've got it up behind a chain and behind nets and all this stuff. So I thought, well, I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to sit here and meditate. Pretty soon, I was probably there for half an hour. And then all of a sudden, she spoke to me as loud and as clear as any human being has ever spoken to me. And she said, there's nothing left of me here. I am wherever you call on me. And I was like, okay. And I got up and walked out and thought, wow, that is so incredible. And the fact that she said that was amazing, because I know that no matter where I am, she is there to help me identify answers or help me understand things that are important. Help me. I don't know. I call on the divine feminine in a lot, because I need help understanding why something's happening, and different people and beings have been coming in. So Mary was the first one I had communication with. Recently, Mary and Jesus' daughter, Sarah, whether you believe it or not, Sarah came to me and said, helped explain to me why I was feeling so much anger during this COVID time. And I claimed to not have any fear about anything. And she said, and it was no doubt, when they come, exactly the vibration and who that is. She said in her tiny little voice, you actually are afraid, and you're afraid of losing that friendship. And that's why you're feeling anger. And you can't deny those things. You can't say, well, did that really happen? Because it's just as real as any real thing. And so that was so significant. And lastly, just recently, Mother Mary has been stepping up, and I've never been in communication with her before. And she has been showing me, she's considered Our Lady of Sorrow. And so her vibration is equivalent to the vibration of sorrow, which is why people that feel that vibration and resonate with that oftentimes have her come to them, because that's her same vibration. And she said to me, the reason you feel sorrow is because you have such deep love for that person, it feels painful. But if you could see it as your infinite capacity and deep capacity to love, and that's why it's painful, and that's why you call it sorrow. It changes. Like when you can see it as deep infinite love, it changes. And that is what I see she does. Is she said, please release this. We so much so, please, this is what Mary said, please release your sorrow to me now, because we need your light to shine more brightly. And you being filled with that sorrow and what you consider as a negative feeling is dimming your light. And right now, we need the brightest lights. And then, of course, I said, well, doesn't, that's people's identity. Sorrow is sometimes their identity. And do I want to hand this off to somebody else who's going to feel more sorrow? And she said, that's not what happens. I transmute it and it becomes deep love. So you will feel the feeling of deep love when you release it to me. And that's what we need to have going on in our world today, is the release of the sorrow, the release of the anger, the release of the blame, so that we can feel a feeling of love and shine brighter in the world and vibrate at a higher place. So that's
what it is for you. And I love that for you, the divine feminine really is coming through the voices of these women of history who are speaking directly to you that they are still with you, starting with Mary Magdalene, and showing you how to be present, how to be with your emotions, with them.
Yeah.
Their wisdom or in their compassion in a way that sets you free to be who you really are on the planet today. As women do, we hold space for each other, don't we? We're there for each other.
We are. And especially, it feels like at this time, we really need to be there for each other. And, it's oftentimes in a situation like this where, we see each other on a Zoom call, or, you're calling somebody or you're writing a letter, we're not next to each other. And yet it still is so possible to share love and wisdom and hold space for people. I don't know about you, but I've been doing some online meditations where I'll lead a meditation or I'll be a part of a meditation that's being led. Oh my gosh, Misa, what is so significant is being in my own house. Like if I meditate, it takes me about an hour to kind of get anywhere, feel like that's what it takes about an hour. But when I'm on a call and somebody's leading a meditation, I can get the same answer or get to the same place or arrive at the space I'm looking to arrive at in like 15 minutes. It's because the power of the people and how significant that space is being held by somebody else and all the people that come in with that same intention. It's amazing. It's just amazing.
It truly is. And those meditations, even when they're online, are bringing us into that collective consciousness, that spirit of oneness. And we all get to open and awaken at some level when we come together into that consciousness together. It's powerful. Tell me what you sense divine feminine consciousness is bringing to the world right now. What do you think we're bringing?
Well, I believe that we're bringing, it's so hard to say because, here's this divisiveness and the way we've been living for so many years. And then there's this thing that's happening next to it that is about compassion, and it's about knowing yourself, and it's about loving other people and recognizing that they're reacting differently than you, and why are they doing that, and loving them even still. It's like something that's happening right now that is just really beyond words. So all this turbulence, and at the same time, all this beauty and this understanding and this kind of give me a break sort of feeling, like loving somebody despite the fact that things aren't really going so well, or the fact that they said something that wasn't appropriate or whatever. There's just all kinds of forgiveness, and I see it in so many different ways, and people reaching out and saying, I'm so sorry that this happened, which I don't necessarily know happened as much before. It just feels like, to me, the divine feminine is rearing its beautiful head for the first time in years. We've been like in the shadows and the quiet spaces. And you know how like women, I would say this is true about me. I don't necessarily need to be the one out front. I really love to be the supporter. I like to make people, feel good about themselves. And I feel like that's part of what the divine feminine is about, supporting the inner you rather than trying to make it some other way. Like I would say a more masculine idea is here, this is how you should be. And a divine feminine would be, how are you and how can we make, how can you be better? Versus this is how you should be. This is how do you want to be and how can we support you in that? So it feels like this is what's happening and being created. So
that is a really excellent example, truly excellent. Becky, tell me why this is important right now. What in your heart?
Well, I feel like for me, we have such a great opportunity right now to shift the planet. Shift what's going on in this planet. And some of us are in positions where we can do that. So like as a teacher, university professor, lecturer, I am talking to students every day, and I can't unravel this part of me from my lectures. So, the other day I was teaching people heart math and how to breathe into their heart to make proper decisions, and how do you manage properly and what happens when you use heart math and work that in. So I feel like what's so important is for every one of us to take those opportunities when we can work that in. And whereas we might have used to think, oh, this is a little woo-woo, I shouldn't do this, I might get in trouble for this, I think it's just important for us to be authentically presenting this information as the way it is. And I feel like that's what I've been doing, where I'll talk about past lives or talk about, this is what Mary Magdalene is saying, or this is what Mother Mary is saying, and just eliminate the idea of whether somebody's going to think that's weird or not. Because I think they want us to communicate this stuff. And if it's coming through me, very likely it wants to be shared. So I'm going to share it. And even if somebody's an atheist or completely doesn't believe in anything, maybe they'll say, well, dang, she's pretty convinced. And, maybe it's a little thorn in the heart that becomes a rose eventually. And they'll say, oh yeah, I can see how that happens. Or, when somebody says a term or tells you a little bit about something, and then all of a sudden you start seeing it everywhere and you're like, wait, all of a sudden this is a real thing and I hadn't even heard of it before. So, for us to talk about the divine feminine and the emergence of, or the like stepping around the corner and saying, here we are, and we need to have our world be dominated, at least in balance. So, probably because we've been so masculine for so long, we swing into this more feminine space with the idea that eventually we'll get right back in the center, because it's the duality of, and the balance of that really creates a much healthier environment to live in.
You're really speaking to something that I've shared with some of my students, which is that in masculine thinking, we need to prove. It has to be scientifically proven, right? In feminine energy, we're in a receptive state, as you were speaking to in the beginning, to what we cannot yet imagine.
Yeah.
That is there. So when you're in this receptive state and you're in these trance states and higher states of consciousness, there is, you said, it's very real. And it is a very real reality. Real reality. That was kind of weird, but I hope you know what I meant, Becky.
I totally do. Yeah, it's very real. Real.
Very real. And when we allow that to be true, maybe unprovable, but true, when you're with your university students, you just opened up the doorway to them to say, what else is there in addition to that which has been proven through science? So I think that what you're speaking to is a great gift to the consciousness of humanity, because it takes us beyond that which we know through a different avenue.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's so good. And we need to do it more and more. And I think, this post-COVID situation, I don't know what that's going to look like, but I do feel like there's such great opportunity for us. I mean, imagine when we can be together again, and imagine when um, we can go to a store and go to a movie. I mean, I think about how amazing those things are, and we will all be a little bit changed because of what we've experienced. And hopefully, I don't know, like it seems that there's a lot of people waking up right now. And when I say that, I mean like searching for a higher purpose for things, because this is so crazy that it's almost like you need to figure out why. And that idea leads people into a search for, I don't know, what's the existential crisis is what a lot of people are going through, which is like the first step towards awakening. When you start thinking, hey, I've got to figure this out because this is not satisfying. And do I want to go back to a job I don't like? People start thinking of it, and you start down that path, and then the universe is like, oh, hey, get this, and here's a book, and here's a book. And then pretty soon you find yourself in a place where you're meditating, and then the whole universe opens up to you. That's a thing too, I would say, is the best part of the last couple of years for me. And in fact, so much so during this COVID time is the stepping into meditation and allowing it to be whatever it needs to be. Because for a long time, I had this idea that it was me quieting my mind. And then I realized it really is not that. You get to a moment where you quiet your mind so that your higher self can actually speak, or beings can, the divine feminine can come in and speak.
That's right. And the only way it can happen is when our minds get still, really, really still. That's where transformation begins and new insights come in.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
To come back around to your book and tie this all together, what's the most significant change that you think people can make to move their lives in a more positive direction?
Oh, I love that. Well, I really believe that the most important thing is how we word things in a way that opens us to infinite possibilities. And so when you think about how you want your future to be, where you want to go, who you want your partner to be, if you're looking for a partner or whatever, how you define or look or ask for something is so intricate and so important. So even if we're asking, praying, pleading, begging, it's essentially establishing that we have a lack of. Instead, the important thing is to define, knowing that it's already there. You just maybe haven't met it yet. Like the thank you for the partner that supports me in all the things that I'm interested in and loves me unconditionally and makes me feel like a better person every day. So what if that person's not next to you right now? Being in a space and holding that vibration is what is going to lead you to the best possible future for yourself. I think it is so important. And what I also want to say in the book, one of the ways I talk, one of the healing modalities that I think that is really important to me and I think has helped so much is your technique of holding. I believe that because to me, again, you are in a space like if you're listening, you probably understand this holding meditation that Misa talks about and teaches. And this was one of the first things I started to do when I, was writing my book, because I thought, oh my gosh, you're going inward to find an energy that needs to be healed, or an energy of something, and then you're actually just sending love to that space. And to me, it's the same as bringing that space into a vibration that's equal to love. And that's where things really start shifting. So that's all these things. You have to have what it is that you desire, the vibration of what it is you really do desire, and then it matches and comes together. And I think that's what is the most important piece about the book, is figuring out what that is and raising your vibration to that space and holding that as, the key to your future.
Yes, yes, becoming that loving vibration. And lovingly, I know from your work, releasing the doubts, releasing the emotions that might be impeding you from that, being that vibration. Because that desire comes from the divine too. That
For
impulse
sure.
comes from the divine.
Yeah.
And as my ancestors taught me, if that desire, and I'm not talking about attachment stuff, I mean desire exists in you, it is from the divine impulse and it already exists. And
Yeah.
your love aligns you, as Rumi says, and you quote him in your book, and it's one of my favorites, that which you are seeking is seeking you.
Isn't that just the most beautiful thing? It's the most beautiful. So you have to make sure you're seeking the right things.
Speaking it, thinking it, that's what I hear you saying. Speaking it, thinking it, being present to it in a way that it can manifest. So we're not encumbering the process.
Yeah, because we
Is
don't
that
want to
right?
hold ourselves in a position of lack or a position that's just going to keep us tumbling in that same problem. It's so easy to do that too. I see people, when they tell their problems, it feels like they're just keeping themselves in that space. It's not necessarily true. Like sometimes you need to get it off your chest. You need to tell somebody the story so that they can understand. Just like me telling you about my icky dating life. Sometimes that's important to talk about. But then you have to move into a space of putting yourself like more on a better track for a healthier potential future.
I love it. Oh, Becky, I love your work so much.
Oh,
I
thank you
do. And I
so
love
much.
what you're doing in the world. I'm delighted that you've been here for my first interview in this series, that we got it started. I want you all to know, if you've been listening, you can, and watching, you can get Becky's book. Here it is again. This fabulous book, Life Transformed: 6 Steps to a Future Beyond Your Imagination. You can get it on Amazon or on her website at beckyprater.com. That's Prater. And we'll have it, by the way, in the links below. Check out her workshops, check out her meditations and tips for a future beyond your imagination. And as always, subscribe to my channel for more insights into the divine feminine, and go deeper into the journey at my websites, and you'll find those links down below. With love to all of you. Love to you, Becky.
Oh, thank you so much, Misa. It's such a great honor. I love you and your work too. Thank you. You've been a big part of my healing journey too. So thank you. Thank you.
Yay, we get to be
Yeah.
here for each other. Awesome. All right. Goodbye,
Thank
everyone.
you.